Okay, Tov Tes Vov, Shaloi La'arav Erev Techumim Ledvar Mitzvah. Very important simon. You only allowed, when can you make an Erev Techumim? Only for a Dvar Mitzvah. You can't stum do it. Says the Mechaber, Ein Ma'arvin Erev Techumim Ledvar Mitzvah. You can only do an Erev Techumim, i.e., by going to a certain place and making your, sort of altering your Mokum Shvisa, or by putting Mozen Shtei Su'udas there, if it's for a purpose of a mitzvah, Ledvar mitzvah. Kagoin, here we go. For example, that you want to go to a Beis Ha'ovel. Interesting, to go to Beis Ha'ovel on Shabbos. So you want to visit someone who is sitting Shiva, you can do that on Shabbos. We generally don't have Shivas on Shabbos, but to pop in if you and to be menachem and to keep him company, that's I guess what it's referring to. So Leilech LeBeis Ha'ovel, Lebeis Hamishter, there's a simcha, Shal Nisuin, Lehagbil Pnei Rabbi, you want to go and visit your Rebbe, Chaverei, or a friend, Sheba Min HaDerech, V'chiyetzi Bo'elu, and all of these examples. Says the Ramah, Hagah, Yisherei Tzedei Lech L'Tayal B'Yontif, or you want to go for a nice walk on Yontif, or Shabbos, B'Paradis, and let's say there's a nice walk in one direction, and you want to change and make an Erev Tchum, so that you can do that, that's okay, that's considered the Dvar Mitzvah. Sheyesh Bo Simcha, B'zeh Mikri Dvar Mitzvah, that's called a Dvar Mitzvah. Or there's a fear. You're running away from Evdei Kechavim, or bandits, or then you can even go to Dvar Rishus. That's you don't need a Dvar Mitzvah. And if you didn't, you made the Erev Techumim, and not for one of the above acceptable reasons, but you did it for a Dvar Rishus, Hari Ze Eruv, nevertheless it works. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotan Aleph, El Dvar Mitzvah. V'yesh machleikas ben hapoiskim. V'yesh oimrim tezeh dafka k'she'ir pas. Now, some say that when you know to do it for a Dvar Mitzvah only, that's when you do it b'pas. In other words, on Friday afternoon, I take my Mozen Shtei Su'udas and I put it, let's say 2,000 amas away from my house. Then in that situation, that's when I need the Dvar Mitzvah. But if I'm there in person, physically, at Ben Hashmoshes, mutar lechatchila, that's no problem. Even for Dvar Rishus. Since I am actually there, for Koine Shvisa B'Shivasa, Dvar Rishus mutar, even for Dvar Rishus would be allowed. V'yesh Oimrim, De'ein chiluk bein pasu bein raglov. It doesn't make a difference how you do it, whether you set up Mozen Shtei Sudas or whether you're there personally. Le'olam ein ma'arvin lechatchila el Dvar Mitzvah. You can only do it for a Dvar Mitzvah. Of a Mokum Tzorech yesh lahakol Kedei Rishona. That for when you're there in person, even for a Dvar Rishus would be okay. Shal Nisuin. So in the list of all the various Dvar Mitzvahs, we had Shal Nisuin. Vuadin Sudas Erusin, lav dafka a wedding, but even an engagement, an Erusin, or Sudas Kinyan, Shenoagin Lasas Achshov, I guess that's some sort of Vart or Tanoim or something like that. Shagam Elu Sudas Mitzvah, and that's also considered the Sudas Mitzvah for Eruv Techumim purposes. Nisue Bas Kohen, listen to this. Nisue Bas Kohen Yisrael Amoretz. If a Bas Kohen marries an Amoretz, a Bas Tamid Chacham La Amoretz, or the daughter of a Tamid Chacham is engaged to an Amoretz, Eino Sudas Mitzvah. That is not called a Sudas Mitzvah. I remember this was pointed out by the Rav who spoke at my engagement. I'm married to Bas Kohen, so he mentioned this particular Gemara. But he does, by the way, it says in footnote number 2, it says if there's shiras for tishpachas at the Suda, then it changes. No, at that point, he just, he made a joke at the time. This is going back a number of years, but I remember he pointed that out. But he says, he said something nice. He said, but if the chas, etc., etc. So, it wasn't as bad as that sounds. Now this is a bit comforting as well. When we say that a Bas Kohen or a Bas Tamid Chacham marries an Amoritz, that means the Amoritz of days of old. We don't have Amoratzim of those that we're referring to. Unless we're talking about someone who's mamish mezalz of mitzvahs, he is disrespectful to mitzvahs. That's no better than if an Amoritz who was mentioned in Shas. That if it's they're both the daughter of an Amoritz marrying an Amoritz, so the kula alma have a sudas mitzvah. That's okay. That certainly is considered a sudas mitzvah. But if you know at that suda they're not going to behave properly. There's going to be mixed dancing. To make an Erev Techumim, to go to such a gathering, is certainly not accepted to be mesamech in a situation where they're doing these things. At such a Sheva brachas, such a simcha, one should not make the bracha of Shas Simcha b'ma'inai, unless you making the Erev Techumim to enable you to go there, so that you can prevent, anything untoward happening. That would be okay. Okay, so again, we're saying you only make an Erev Techumim for a Dvam mitzvah, and one of the examples was to meet your friends. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Gimel, Afilu Einam Chacham, even if he's not a Talmud Chacham, the Choshev Zeh Mitzvah Kim Shebam Naderech. Your friend's traveling and you're going to meet him. It's a lovely thing to do. So you're making an Erev Techumim to enable you to go and walk that extra distance so that you can meet your friend who's traveling. V'das Al Yerabba, the Rabbi the Chabarer Chachamari. According to Al Yerabba, however, that we're talking about a friend who is Chacham. So Mr. He's somehow lives in a nearby town and he's coming into town, so you want to go and meet him and accompany him the last half an hour of the way or something. Yeah, something like that. Says Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Dalet Kagain shetzarich lot seis lefakech al iskei rabim. You want to go and deal with public matters. If you look at footnote 3, this is an interesting one. What about going so that you can supervise milking in your nearby farm? Is that considered the Dvar Mitzvah? And forget the Chol of Yisrael aspect, but if it can get Parnasa, Yaldem Tzului Bohem, and Hari Pasha Shenechshev Kedvar Mitzvah, Shem Letayal Nechshev Dvar Mitzvah, Oinik Shabbos Kal V'chem L'Isparnas. Yeah? So you can, okay. Leches the bris milah, or to go to a bris, spal b'minyan, so to make an Erev Techumim so that you can go daven with the minyan, all of these sort of things. V'chein k'shaya chutz le'ira, if you're out of your town, v'roi tzilov le'beis l'spal b'shaz v'yontav, that would also be okay. Ochein le'pidyon shvuyim. However, there are certain categories which are so important, pidyon shvuyim, v'chachoma haba leiled, or a midwife to come and help someone give birth, v'haba lehatzim lakutim, to save someone from from trouble, from kutim, yoitzim af b'loi eruv. They're allowed to go even without an eruv. Okay, but pardas, what was this going on? Sif Katan Hey. L'tayal b'shabbos v'yontav in a pardas. Sheyesh b'simcha. Miu, pasha demar b'simcha shel heta. We're talking about a kosher simcha. Aval lefima shemotz b'aveneseinu harabim. Be'ezim mekomes ba'ayoros gedolos. We see in some big cities, says the Chavetz Chaim, she'eskin sham b'hailus. There's a sort of a light-headedness. There's mixing boys and girls. Therefore, you shouldn't make an Erev Techumim in order to participate in that. That's not a Dvar Mitzvah, that's a Dvar Aveira. Many Gedolim have screamed and shouted about this type of light-headedness, this inappropriate behavior. And someone who is looks after his neshama should keep away from there. Okay, Minakutim. It's always interesting when the Chavetz Chaim sort of gives Musa in the Mishnah Berurah. Minakutim. So he's being captured. Was it? He's beirach from the kutim. Then that's another example when he can make an Erev Techumim. Either they're causing him trouble or they're going to steal money. If there's a sakana, even if there's any danger, then even without an Erev, you just get out of there. You can escape. Va'oz muta. This is going on. The last bit of the Ramah. Va'oz muta leilech afilu dvar rishus. Koi al hasif hanal. It's going on the previous sif. To kiven the konasham eruv misham tzarech mitzvah, since you've been koina the eruv for tzarech mitzvah, mutar leleches alpaim after dvar rishos. In other words, if you set up your eruv techumim for a dvar mitzvah and then you decide I wanted like to use it just for dvar rishos, that's also okay. All right. So just to summarize Sif Aleph, and then we'll leave it there. That you're only allowed to do an eruv techumim for a dvar mitzvah. There's a machlikas whether that's referring to that's dafka b'pas. But for Beraglov, it doesn't, even without Dvar Mitzvah. And there are those who say, no, both Bepas and Beraglov, it should be Ledvar Mitzvah. And what is Dvar Mitzvah? Various examples given. Okay.